Okay, my name's Zakashi guys, and in this video here we are going to be talking about the 6th anniversary. Did they fumble the anniversary, or was it an overall amazing anniversary? I'll be giving my ratings on every single part, events and other characters that they dropped during the 6th anniversary. As you guys know, there was 3 parts, technically 4, but I'm gonna do it as if there was 4. So in the first part, you know, we had the 2 fusion warriors, Gogeta and Vegito. In the second part, we had the 2 Sun family members, God Goku and Ultimate Gohan. And in part 3 we had Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. And for the last part, I don't know if you guys want to consider it, but it was considered the after party. We had Legends Limited Omega Shenron. So I'm going to discuss it as if there's 4 parts, but the main things we want to focus on is the first 3. Hopefully this video is going to be entertaining somewhat. You guys leave your opinions down below in the comment section, because we're now completely done with it. We're all the way into a Sagas from the Movies campaign, Dragon Ball Z specifically, where we already have the legendary Super Saiyan Broly as a Legends Limited. That's enough talking, let's get into this. So let's start with part 1. Part 1, where we had the headliners of the anniversary. The headliners of the anniversary are very, very important because it sets the tone, the pacing for the whole anniversary. If part 1 is absolutely trash, most likely the whole anniversary is going to feel very, very slow or very, very bad. But they had the most profitable drop they could have ever dropped. This is something that caught everybody off guard. For part 1, we got 2 fusion warriors, Legends Limited fusing Super Vegito, who we thought was going to be the only Legends Limited that we're getting for part 1, or at least the only fusion warrior, I'll say for sure. He dropped alongside Shin as part of the Majin Buu Saga team, and these 2 here are very, very useful even to this day. I'm saying that as if it's been like years since the 6th anniversary is gone, but you know what I mean. But then after that, in the reveals, the most phenomenal thing they could have done, they followed it up with another fusion warrior, fusing Gogeta Blue. This absolutely took everybody by storm. It was like, what the hell are they doing? Because people usually have the mindset, oh, they wouldn't do this, they wouldn't do that. It'd be a waste to drop both of them at the same time, but they completely caught us off guard by dropping 2 fusion warriors together. Fusing Gogeta Blue dropped with the 1% Broly, and that Broly is dead. He's dead, nowhere to be seen, nobody's using him, nobody's touching him. But fusing Gogeta Blue still has a lot of life on him, and you know he's come with that strike assault mechanic. Now let's focus on the Legends Limiteds. Vegito and Gogeta are both amazing in their own right. I personally think Vegito is way better because Rising Rushes are timeless. I say that because of his Rising Rush mechanic, which guarantees you to always win the wager. You don't have to pick the right card, but if he does lose it, it doesn't do the normal Rising Rush damage, it will only hit supreme impact damage. So it's still better than nothing, and in most cases it will still always kill. You just have to be wary of if the enemy is type advantage, but it doesn't really matter because on switch he gets type neutral for about 3 time accounts. Fusing Gogeta Blue, his strike assault, even though a lot of people have deemed it flawed because it can't chain into green cards and it's his only way of getting cover null, which is obviously a downside, but he is the perfect counter to almost every gauge, assuming he can do damage. He's also super tanky, gets his vanish back on main, nullifies blast darts on the blue card, so he can be super useful on the battlefield, especially if there's any good purples in the meta, which we obviously do have because of Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta and Ultimate Gohan. Now going into the 1% Sparkings, I'm not going to speak much on them. Broly's pretty dead, so I'm not even going to talk about him at all, but Shin is a very good combo stopper. With Shin, they built him to seal cards, to inconvenience the enemy, and he's also very tanky on the cover change, which is obviously super useful. His element choice is pretty good as well as red. So especially in part 1 where a lot of people are using fusing Gogeta Blue, having that red unit to stop the other Legends Limited that's dropped for the 6th anniversary is quite a big deal. Now, if I'm going to give part 1 a rating on its own, I would genuinely give it a 9.6. The missing 4 points is because Gogeta's strike assault didn't reach the ceiling that we expected it to reach when we saw the reveal, and the 1% Sparking Broly was completely dead, not even by the points part 2 even started. So that's quite sad. But in terms of the hype, it pretty much hit a 10. In terms of the unit designs, so how they look, their animations, Broly's animations are, even though he's not being used, still 10s. So they went really over the board when it comes to designing these units. But in terms of playing with the units, I think because Broly slacked off and because Gogeta's strike assault could be a lot better, even though it still is good, I had to deduct a couple points. Part 1 could have easily been a 10, but I'm being quite strict here with the rating anyways. But 9.6 is still ridiculously high in my opinion. Part 2 was really a make or break. The unit choices were a bit sketchy in my opinion, at least for one of them. So in part 2, we got 2 Legends Limiteds again. So by this point, we've already got 8 units in the anniversary, which is wild. So in the first banner that they revealed, we got Ultimate Gohan, which was a completely unnecessary drop. I don't understand why they decided to drop a Son Family hybrid unit during the 6th anniversary for part 2. It just didn't make sense to me. It should have been something else. I'm not going to ponder on what right now. We're just discussing what they dropped. But it's not specifically even the fact that he's a Son Family hybrid unit. He's absolutely cracked. He's insane. This guy here is able to cancel buffs and he has endurance. So anybody that nullifies endurance on rush, ultimate art, things like that, pretty much everybody won't be able to kill him or get through that endurance unless you catch him on the cover change, which is absolutely absurd. And he also dropped alongside the most absurd, the most ridiculous 1% sparking Evil Majin Buu. This was just truly excessive because this guy is the combo breaker of death. And guess what? He also cancels buffs. Now alone, these guys are already mad, but putting them alongside the Majin Buu Saga units we got in part 1, which were Vegito and Shin, this team has already become unstoppable in just 2 parts, which is insane. The animations on Ultimate Gohan were quite lackluster, I think a lot of people can agree, but on Evil Majin Buu, they really went over the top in my opinion. They did him justice. Ultimate Gohan obviously being purple and Evil Majin Buu being green, which I still think is good elements for both of them. Then on the other side of part 2, where there was quite a bit of disappointment where there shouldn't have been, we got the Super Saiyan God Goku banner. Super Saiyan God Goku dropped with the most beautiful animations, probably the best animations out of part 2, but part 1, it was a bit tough to beat, I'm not going to lie. But Super Saiyan God Goku's animations are really good, but his kit, man, his kit did not hit the mark. At this point, this guy is the second least valuable unit in the anniversary. And second is crazy because he's only competing with Broly. Shin is being used consistently on God Ki and Majin Buu Saga because he has value in combo breaking, but because God Goku isn't the oppressive force we need him to be, people would rather just opt out on using him. And it also doesn't help that he's green while they just dropped an Ultimate Gohan, one of the most dangerous units in the game, who's purple, literally slamming him. It was literally the worst outcome for God Goku. His kit doesn't even have card on entry or key on entry, which is just appalling. But at least he has an explosive green and he can also block AoE greens. Also endurance, but he doesn't cancel buffs, so it's pretty easy to break through. Alongside him, they dropped the God of Destruction Beerus, who also has pretty good animations. I'd say it's even rivaling the Legends Limited Beerus, but they did that all for 1% sparking, which is quite wild. Beerus was a decent combo breaker, he can lock you in, but it still is pretty useful to have him on your team, but he's kind of faded out now. If I was going to give part 2 a rating, I would give it a 7 out of 10. Now this also might be quite a strict rating, but I feel like they missed the mark with both characters in different ways. Ultimate Gohan, he's an absolutely powerful unit that people love using, but I feel like they didn't do him justice with his animations. They could have been so much better. They weren't bad, they just weren't good enough to really make me feel like he's something special. And then with God Goku, yes, they got the animations on point, but then his kit is just appalling, man. It needs to be somewhat better. Even just a few tweaks could make him literally a monster, but they jammed on it so bad to the point where I can't even look at him with respect. So with one unit, good animations, bad kit. The other unit, bad animations, good kit. The 1% sparkings though, they did justice, so they keep the number at 7. And again, I am being quite strict. It could have been lower if the 1% were worse. But I think Beerus did enough on release, probably more than Broly in comparison to the part 1. But he still didn't have much life on him anyways, but he was a lot more useful in my opinion. And in regards to Majin Buu, the evil one, he's up there at the top of the game. He's actually just flourishing. It's absolutely insane. So I think a 7's a good number. Maybe I could make it a bit higher, but I'm gonna keep my number at 7. Now for part 3, they dropped Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. This guy has absolutely insane animations and they did him so much justice with his untouchable counter. I've been pushing this untouchable counter thing for about 6 months, saying that Gogeta is going to be untouchable. Ultra G4 is going to be untouchable. And surprise, surprise, they gave him a literal gauge that makes him untouchable. It's absolutely insane. His healing factor is absurd. His ultimate is almost a one-shot every single time. He's the most nuclear last stand unit in the game currently. His element is pretty good, so he's not disadvantaged to anybody besides from the Fusing Gogeta Blue. And in terms of aesthetic, they really hit the mark. If you hit his ultimate art, which is the Big Bang Kamehameha, it has multiple different times that you can get. If I'm not mistaken, he can go up to 1,000 times, which has never been done before in any Dragon Ball game. So for a playing experience, this is truly one of one, and I think they hit the mark perfectly with him. Also in regards to how he plays in the game, I think they did a really good job resetting the meta. Right before this, everybody was using Ultimate Gohan and Majin Buu Saga with the evil Majin Buu as well, because they are able to cancel buffs and they have the survivability factor, meaning that you won't be able to damage them a lot, and even if you do, Ultimate Gohan has endurance, they cancel buffs, and they also are able to heal a lot, which is obviously inconvenient to deal with. They were dominating the game, I would say. They still are very popular right now. But with G4's release, because he's the new big ultra, everybody switched their attention to this unit and they started running him alongside fusion warriors, making it so that nobody's running any survivability factors like endurance, revival, indestructible. So everybody was playing with 3 characters that all had 1 life, doing big attacks, and it was kind of super fun, especially in my opinion. For Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta's release, people might not be happy that it was just a plain ultra, but I think they hit the mark perfectly with what they were trying to do. Even the reveal, they kept it short and simple. They had cars fusing, which was just super dope in my opinion. I have to give G4's release an absolute 10. I don't feel like there's much more they could have done, because again, they have to increase the mark every single time, and I think they did a really good job with that. With the quality of the reveal, the amount of information they gave out, the unit they designed, and how good he is in the game, it just makes sense that Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta will be #1 in Dragon Ball Legends. Now, the headline units aren't the only things that they dropped in the anniversary, so I'm gonna just glaze over some other units that they dropped. We have the free-to-play Android 18, who's making big noise on Majin Buu Saga. She's actually very, very useful in supporting the team, but a lot of those guys that also run Androids have started running her, so I gotta give her props, because for a free-to-play unit, if you're being used consistently in the meta, especially with Proud Battle existing, she's doing good. She's doing very, very good, because free-to-plays do not usually get shine. We also got the Super Saiyan Goten, the purple one. He's also doing big numbers. He's bringing back Hybrid Saiyans. People have been running him alongside Ultimate Gohan because he's a good tank on the team, and it also gives people used to run Red Beast, because Red protects purple from yellows, on top of the fact that Red Beast is able to cancel buffs similar to Ultimate Gohan. So he's like a substitute for Hybrid Saiyans if you were going to run Evil Majin Buu, who cancels buffs on the Majin Buu Saga team. We have the Legends Limited Broly from the Broly movie, who got a Zenkai. Even though he's not bad, you have to run him with very specific equipment. He just hasn't made a lot of impact in the game. I don't feel like he is a necessary Zenkai for when they dropped him. On movies, he didn't make a lot of noise, and that just simply might be because of the God Goku release. It just wasn't good enough to make movies as dominant as it could be. So I don't want to put the blame on Broly too much, but I still think Broly could have been better. He doesn't have enough cover now to really be a unit that I'm going to use consistently. You have to continuously drop combo to get benefits out of him, but that doesn't mean he cannot hit hard. His damage is super good. We got Corrupted Zamasu Zenkai, who was one of the best Zenkais this anniversary, even this year. Corrupted Zamasu has been putting up crazy numbers on Fusion Warriors, on powerful opponents, on regeneration. He's a true team hopper, even God Key. He fits on every single team, and him being anti-Saiyan goes against what most of the anniversary headliners were. The 2 Fusion Warriors that we got for part 1, God Goku for part 2, and G4 for part 3, while also meshing with all of those units. He's actually quite insane. His element choice is super good too, comes with explosive green. He nullifies endurance off his main abilities, so he doesn't need to actually go through the route of ultimate arting or rushing to take you out if you have endurance, which means he's a good counter for the likes of Ultimate Gohan. He can take him out using his strike arts, because Ultimate Gohan will not be nullifying the buffs based on strikes or blast. So he's had a lot of value this anniversary for good reason. And then the final Zenkai that I want to mention, Kid Buu. At first, he wasn't seeing a lot of shine, but once a lot of people got him to Zenkai 7, they really saw that this guy was an absolute monster. If not the best Zenkai that we got this anniversary. He is absolutely insane. His Vanish Restore is nuts. His blast damage is probably at the top of the game. He comes with endurance as well. He gets covered on the first card press, and his ultimate will literally take you to hell. They made Kid Buu pretty much canon. So in regards to his kit, they did him complete justice. In regards to the other units, I'm going to put this as category of other units, so Zenkais and free to plays. I gotta give this bunch of units a 9.5. They really did justice on the free to play additions for characters. Now, I know I didn't mention any 1% Sparkings or the Ultra Platinum equipments that they're dropping. For example, they did really good with Ultra Omega Shenron. That's quite a big deal, but that was simply not to overload this segment. But for the rating of a 9.5, it is considering all of those extra factors as well, because they do have an impact, for example, with the Zenkai buffs and teams that you'd build, as I do know people have been running the free-to-play Ultra Omega Shenron. In regards to events, I think they did a pretty good job. I don't have any complaints about the events, but if I was going to nitpick, I would say in the raids, they still cut the Chrono Crystals. If they're gonna drop so many raids, I don't feel like they should give us 700 per raid. They should have just brought it back up to 1,000. But in regards to the chance time, I think that was a big thing in keeping the hype for the reveals and stuff. enough. Even though they separated it, it was a good thing to consistently have us waiting for. I want to give hella props for the custom event where we had fusing Gogeta Blue and Super Vegito. So we had Vegito and Gogeta working together against all of those antagonists. They did a really good job of showing that they are the most powerful because it's Goku and Vegeta that are fused, the protagonist and the deuteragonist. We have the other events such as Extreme Battle, the Hoi Poi, and of course the Shenron event where you can get 1000 Chrono Crystals. Overall, I think they hit the mark with their events. I don't really want to talk about the events too much because in general, we all just played them for the Chrono Crystals, but specifically that event with the Gogeta and Vegito, it was super nice to look at. For the events in general, I'm gonna give them a 9.5 as well, only because they are cutting the Chrono Crystals on the raid. They could easily give us 300 more for each raid, and that would change everybody's experience during the anniversary. It would make a big difference. Now, the last thing I want to talk about is the amount of Chrono Crystals they gave out. This isn't going to be an exact number for how many Chrono Crystals they gave out during the anniversary, but it's just going to take May, which is the month that the anniversary starts in, June and July. I know it goes on to August, but the number we'd get it would be quite excessive. Plus, a lot of the banners started disappearing by then. So I'm only going to include these 3 months and show you the number right now. So in total, between all those 3 months, we got 77,928 Chrono Crystals. That might seem absurd, but if you compare that to how many banners we got, it's actually not as much as we might need. We got 4 characters in part 1, 2 banners, 2 fusion warriors, 2 1% sparkings. In part 2, we got 4 characters as well. We got God Goku, Ultimate Gohan, and 2 1% sparkings. Then in part 3, we got an Ultra, which are damn near quite impossible to pull, but from what I saw, people were very lucky, but it's still a lot to go around. So for the amount of Chrono Crystals they gave out, I'll give them an 8.5. I still think it's a big number, especially because you're meant to be saving prior to the anniversary, and it's still a gacha game. So for a gacha game, I think they were quite generous during the anniversary. They could have been more generous, but I think it's still a good rating to give them. Now, just as an additional, I'm going to consider the after party where we had Legends Limited Omega Shenron drop, and we also had Raid Shenron. After the anniversary, a lot of people looked at this as, what the hell, why would they drop this after G4? It just doesn't make sense. We already have G4, who's the most hyped thing, and he's purple, and they dropped an Omega Shenron that's green. Well, surprise, surprise, this green unit is actually so good that he's defying the fact that G4 is purple. One big reason for that is because of Raid Shenron. Raid Shenron being yellow, which covers green because yellow beats purple, is a good unit to have on the team. Also, Omega Shenron and Raid Shenron work alongside G4. They're on the exact same team. And then obviously the elephant in the room, the new Legends Limited Omega Shenron, he has indestructible, so he has that survivability factor. So from the reset where they dropped Ultra G4, where he was basically forcing everybody to just run 3 OP units, not that you had to, but it was a good strategy, it's gone and reverted back to the survivability game, the long game, where you're running an indestructible unit, endurance unit, buff cancellation units. So personally, in terms of my PvP experience, I really don't like it when it's like this, but it's a very good addition to the meta because this unit here is not a super hype release, but it's a super good release because he has high value. He's bringing a team up, which will be powerful opponents and GT. You can also add in regeneration to that because regeneration is super good right now. So I'm not going to downplay it just because of my personal experience. I think Raid Shenron and Omega Shenron were a very good release, although I wasn't summoning for them ever, simply because it's not my preference. I think they did them justice in terms of animations, even though Rage is ugly as hell. So for them, for the after party, I'm going to give it a 9. Now, you might think after gassing it up, it could have been higher than a 9, but the reason I've given it a 9 is the decision of when they drop this banner. Usually after the Ultra releases, it's going to be the end of the anniversary, but they did this after party thing and caught us by surprise where most people used all their Chrono Crystals. So even though this unit is good, a lot of free-to-play players don't have the Chrono Crystals to get it. So for an experience of trying to get the unit, and if you get the unit, you're still going to want them decent starts so they can survive, that's not going to be the case for a lot of people unless you simply skipped Ultra Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, and most average players are not doing that, especially just off the basis it's an Ultra. Forget the fact it's G4, it's the highest rarity in the game, people want to pull for it. If the kit alone is good, people are going to use it. So I think in terms of the decision to drop it after an Ultra is very, very bad, and that's dropped it the most points. But in terms of the release decision for Omega and Rage, I don't think it's a bad decision at all. I think they hit the mark with the option. At first it seemed like what the hell were they doing, but I think that's mainly because they dropped it it after an ultra. So I think a 9 is a solid number. This is going to be the outro, but I'm also going to give a conclusion on what I think for the anniversary. Overall, if I was giving the 6th anniversary a rating out of 10, I would give it a 9.2. I think that's a really good rating. It's actually really high. It's not based on averaging everything over. It's just based on my overall experience. If I was to give an average based on my numbers, I'm going to leave you guys to do the maths. I'm not doing that. But overall, the anniversary was a very enjoyable experience for me. I enjoyed every single part of it. The reveals, the unit choices, discussing who's the best, who's worse, and even just looking at the animations plus the events. Let me know what you guys think about the whole anniversary in the comment section below. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you haven't already, make sure to press that subscribe button. We're on this grind to 100,000 subscribers. I appreciate you guys for watching, man. My name's Zakashi, guys, and I'll see you guys in the next one, man.